Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. We're going to unpack the EV market, specifically the rise of BYD.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're listening to this, you're probably as fascinated as I am by how BYD just zoomed past Tesla
Right.
to become the world's top EV maker. I mean, it's crazy.
It is.
We've got some seriously cool sources to dig into.
Okay.
And there's some pretty wild twists and turns in BYD's story. I mean, did you know they started out
As a battery company?
as like a tiny battery company?
Yeah.
And their first electric car? Well, it was a total flop.
That's true. It's true.
So to help us navigate all of this, we've got an automotive industry expert here.
Hello. Glad to be here.
I'm really excited to dive into this. So let's rewind back to 2011. I remember seeing videos, like back in the day, of people just laughing at BYD when they were like, oh, we're going to compete with Tesla. I mean, what were they thinking?
Well, it's true. They weren't taken seriously at all. But looking back, their background actually makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
It's the perfect setup for EV success, actually.
Okay.
They started in 1995
Oh, wow.
as a small startup. And the founder was a chemist. And they were all about making lithium-ion batteries.
Okay.
Mostly for, mobile phones back then.
Oh, so they were riding that early smartphone wave.
Exactly. Huge. Everyone had to have the latest phone.
Yeah.
And BYD's battery business, it just exploded. They were supplying like Motorola, Nokia, all the big names.
Wow.
So when the demand for EV batteries started to really take off,
Yeah,
they were in the perfect position.
that's amazing. So they went from powering our pockets to powering our cars.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, hold on. How they actually make that leap?
Well,
Making batteries for phones
Right.
is one thing, but building entire cars, that's...
yeah, that's a whole other.
It is. They made a bold move in 2003. They acquired this car manufacturer that was struggling, actually.
Okay.
And they came out with the F3.
Right.
Which was a gas-powered car. Oh, okay.
Meant to be like a cheaper,
Alternative.
yeah, cheaper Toyota Corolla.
That's
Nothing
not-
fancy, but it got their foot in the door of the car world.
Okay, so then came the first EV attempt, right?
Yeah, 2008. The F3DM, the world's first mass-produced plug-in hybrid.
Cool.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
It was a total flop.
Really? Why?
Well, battery tech wasn't there yet.
Okay.
The range wasn't great. The performance was so-so.
Yeah.
And people just weren't ready for plug-in hybrids yet.
So they were ahead of their time, kind of.
Totally.
But I guess that experience was still valuable, even if it was a flop.
Oh, yeah. Huge learning curve. They refined their tech. They were ready for the next EV wave.
Yeah.
And that's when they came out with the Blade battery.
Okay, I've heard so much about this Blade battery. What makes it so special?
So it's a lithium iron phosphate battery,
Okay.
LFP for short. It's got some serious advantages over the other lithium ion batteries out there.
Like what? Break it down for me.
Okay. So cheaper to produce, incredibly safe. Less risk of, overheating, fires, all that.
Oh, wow.
And it's super space efficient. So they could pack more power into a smaller package. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they took this awesome battery, put it in the Han sedan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A stylish, high-performance EV. Showcased the Blade battery perfectly.
Yeah.
And people loved it. Its sales went through the roof.
Okay, that makes sense. But it wasn't just the tech and the cars, was it?
Nope.
They went for a totally different strategy than Tesla, didn't they?
Right. Tesla was all about high-end luxury EVs. BYD, they were more practical, down to earth.
Okay.
They went for fleets, buses, that kind of stuff.
So while Tesla was in the spotlight, BYD was quietly scaling up production.
Exactly. And that gave them a huge advantage, refining those processes, getting costs down, building a solid foundation.
So it's like they snuck up on everyone while Tesla was busy with their image.
You could say that. It paid off big time.
Yeah, it really did.
It did.
Okay, so they're quietly building this EV empire.
Yeah.
And they're a Chinese company, right?
Right.
And that plays a huge role in their story.
Oh, absolutely. The Chinese government has been a driving force, no pun intended,
Okay.
in the rise of EVs in China. Tax breaks, subsidies, you name it. It's been a really good environment for companies like BYD.
So they had a home field advantage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it allowed them to keep prices lower than Tesla,
Yeah.
which is a big deal. They've got 35% of the Chinese EV market.
Wow.
Tesla's only got about 7.8%. It's a huge difference.
Yeah. It's
Huge.
really impressive. But it's more than just government support, right? There's this whole thing about vertical integration.
Oh, yeah.
I've read about it, but
Why?
what does that actually mean? Why is it such a big deal?
Vertical integration is all about controlling as much of your supply chain as possible.
Okay.
You know how everyone's talking about supply chain issues.
Oh, yeah.
BYD took matters into their own hands.
Oh.
They make about 75% of their car parts in-house, so they have amazing control over their costs, their production. Totally different from Tesla relying on so many suppliers.
Okay.
So while others were scrambling for parts,
Yeah.
BYD was just humming along, making everything themselves.
Oh, wow. So it gives them that cost efficiency, the ability to deal with supply chain problems
Right.
much better than
Way better, yeah.
other companies. And they can be more agile, innovative too, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. They can adjust to market changes quickly, bring in new technologies without waiting on someone else.
Smart. But isn't there a risk with that too? Like, what if some amazing new technology comes along
Yeah,
and it's not theirs?
that's a good point. It is a risk. But so far, they seem to be managing it well. They're investing heavily in R&D, and they're forming partnerships to stay on top of things.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Let's zoom out a bit. It's not just about business and market share, right? EVs are tied to this global sustainability push.
Totally, yeah. The EV revolution is a big part of fighting climate change, less reliance on fossil fuels, creating a cleaner future.
And it seems like this movement is gaining momentum. Governments are pushing for it, people are more eco-conscious, new technologies are making EVs more practical.
It really is. It's like everything's coming together. And it's a huge opportunity for companies like BYD, but it's also a challenge for the traditional car makers.
It seems like the old guard is in an existential crisis, almost. And companies like BYD, they were born into this new world, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So for them, sustainability is part of their DNA.
It is.
They were built for this.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, can those traditional car makers ever catch up? Or have companies like BYD already won?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the traditional car makers, they have a century of experience. They've got the brands, huge manufacturing power,
Yeah.
but they were slow to embrace the EV thing. And that's given the newer companies a big head start.
Yeah, they are scrambling now. They're announcing all these new EV models, investing in battery tech.
They are.
But is it too little, too late?
It might be. It really might be. They need to be decisive and not just add a few electric models.
Right.
Their whole business has to change to really embrace the electric future.
It's not just about slapping an electric motor
Go on.
onto an old car, right?
No, they need to change how they do everything, manufacturing, marketing, everything, aligned with the new way of thinking about cars.
Yeah.
It really is a mindset shift.
And they need to prove to people they're serious about a sustainable future.
Yes,
Yeah.
not just following the trend, because they have to.
Okay.
They have to mean it.
Okay, we've been talking a lot about BYD and the traditional players, but there are other players in this, right?
Oh, yeah, lots of them.
You mentioned Geely before.
Right.
Could they be a contender in the EV race?
Geely's really interesting. I
Uh-huh.
mean, they've got this huge portfolio of brands, a global presence,
Yeah.
and they're known for innovation. They're investing a lot in EVs. They have some really compelling models. They're even involved with, get this, flying cars.
Flying cars. Really? So they're not afraid to shake things up.
Not at all. And that's why they could be a threat to both BYD and Tesla. They're agile, innovative, and they don't have the baggage of traditional car making. They're a wild card. And that makes them dangerous.
So it's not just a two-horse race. We could see someone else come out of nowhere and...
Oh, absolutely. The EV market is still young.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing. New players might pop up, old ones could stumble, some new tech could change everything.
Yeah.
It's a really exciting space to watch.
It's like the Wild West out there. But amidst all this talk about big companies and global competition, how does this impact us regular folks? How is the EV revolution changing our lives?
That's the important question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's impacting us on a lot of levels. EVs are getting cheaper. They're more accessible.
Yeah.
So more people have the option to choose a cleaner, more efficient way to get around.
So that's good, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Less pollution, less reliance on fossil fuels.
Yeah.
But it's not all smooth sailing. We need more charging stations, smarter electric grids. We've got to figure out how EVs fit into our current systems.
Yeah, you can't just suddenly swap gas stations for charging stations.
No, it takes time, it takes planning, it takes a lot of investment.
Yeah.
And then there's the social and economic side of things, too. What happens to the jobs tied to the old car industry? How do we make sure this shift to EVs is fair, that no one gets left behind?
Those are some really tough questions.
They are.
We're on the edge of a big societal shift. We need to be ready for the challenges that come with it.
You're absolutely right.
It's not just a technological disruption, it's a societal one. And we need to think it through carefully.
We need to be informed. We need to be engaged. We need to help shape this change.
So it's not just about the cool cars and the fancy tech.
No, it's not.
It's about the wider impact on all of our lives and making sure this happens in the right way.
Exactly. The tech is cool, but the human element is what makes it meaningful. We have to think about the people behind it all. The engineers, the workers, the people driving the cars, the communities affected.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in the numbers, the market share, the technical stuff, but it really is about people and how this tech is shaping our world.
It's about the human stories behind the tech.
Exactly. The passion, the ingenuity, the challenges, the wins. And I think that's important to remember as we go through this EV revolution. We need to see the big picture, not just the technology, but the economic side, the human stories.
I totally agree. We have to have that holistic view.
So we've looked at the challenges for the traditional car makers, the push for sustainability, the potential threat from companies like Geely, and the human side of all this.
Right.
But like any good story, there's always a twist. And in the EV market, there's something that could shake everything up. We'll be exploring that in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out. But I promise you, it's a game changer.
Right.
It's like the tortoise and the hare, right?
Yeah.
But we can't forget BYD is a Chinese company.
Right.
And that's a
Right.
big part of their success.
Huge. Yeah. The Chinese government has been like all in on EVs, tax breaks, subsidies, the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
It's been a great environment for companies like BYD to, really grow.
So they had a real home field advantage.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's helped them keep prices lower than Tesla,
Okay.
which is a big deal for buyers, right?
Right.
I mean, they have like 35% of the Chinese EV market now.
Whoa.
Tesla's at like 7.8%.
That's crazy.
Big difference. Huge.
That's super impressive. But it's not just the government, right? There's that whole vertical integration thing.
Oh, right.
I read about it, but
Yeah.
what does that actually mean? Why is it such a big deal?
So vertical integration is basically about controlling your supply chain as much as possible.
Yeah.
Now, we've all heard about those supply chain problems.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's talking about it.
Right. Well, BYD, they decided to do something about it.
Right.
They make almost 75% of their car parts themselves in-house.
Whoa.
Yeah, so they have amazing control over costs, over production.
Yeah.
Totally different from, say, Tesla, who relies on all those outside suppliers.
Okay, that makes sense. So while other companies were struggling to get parts,
Exactly.
BYD was just cranking things out.
Yeah, they were fine.
Yeah.
Just making everything themselves.
So that gives them the cost advantage, the ability to deal with supply problems so much better
So much better.
than other companies. And it makes them more agile, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm.
They can react quickly to market changes, build a new tech without waiting for anyone.
That's smart. But isn't there some risk to that too? What if there's some awesome new tech that comes along?
Right.
And they don't have it because they make everything themselves.
That is a risk, you're right. But so far, they're managing it well, investing a ton in R&D,
Okay.
forming partnerships to make sure they're staying ahead of the curve.
Okay. That makes sense. But let's step back for a minute. It's not all about business and market share, is it?
No.
EVs are tied to this global sustainability push.
Absolutely. The EV revolution is a huge part of, the fight against climate change.
Yeah.
Weaning ourselves off fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Trying to build a cleaner future.
And it feels like that movement is really gaining traction.
It is.
Governments are pushing for it. People are more eco-conscious. Plus, the tech is making EVs more practical.
Totally. It's like all these things are coming together at the right time.
Yeah.
It's a big opportunity for companies like BYD, but it's a challenge for the traditional car makers.
Yeah. They're almost having an existential crisis.
It seems like it, yeah.
And then you've got companies like BYD who were born into this new world.
Right. For them, sustainability is like built in.
Yeah, they were made for this. So can the traditional car makers even catch up at this point? Or have companies like BYD already won?
It's a tough one. I mean, those traditional companies have like 100 years of experience. They've got established brands, huge factories.
Right.
But they were so slow to get on board with EVs. And that's given the newer guys a real edge.
They are playing catch-up now, though. All those announcements about new EVs, investments in battery tech.
They are.
But is it too little, too late?
Could be. They really need to make some bold moves and not just add a couple of electric cars to their lineup.
Right.
They need to change their whole business, fully embrace the electric future.
It's not just about putting an electric motor on an old car frame.
No, it's not that simple. They've got to change everything, how they make cars, how they market them. It's a whole new way of thinking.
Yeah.
Really a mindset shift.
And they have to convince people that they're serious about a sustainable future.
Yeah, it can't just be a trend for them. They have to actually mean it.
Okay, we've been focusing on BYD and the big guys. But there are other companies out there.
Oh yeah, a lot of them.
You mentioned Geely earlier. Could they be a contender in this EV race?
Geely's a fascinating one. They have all these different brands. They're global.
Yeah.
And they're known for being innovative. They're putting a lot of money into EVs. They've got some cool models out there. And get this, they're even working on flying cars.
Flying cars, really?
Yeah.
So they're not afraid to, take some risks.
No, not at all. And that's why they could be a threat to BYD and Tesla. They're agile. They're innovative. They're not stuck in the old ways of making cars. They're like a wild card, and that makes them dangerous.
So it's not just a two-way race then. Someone could come out of left field and really...
Totally. The EV market's still young. Lots of changes happening, new companies popping up, old ones might struggle, and some new tech could change everything.
Yeah.
It's an exciting space to watch.
It really is. It's like the Wild West out there.
Right.
But in the middle of all this, talk about big companies and competition and stuff. What about the everyday person? How's the EV revolution changing our lives?
Yeah, that's what matters, right?
Yeah.
It's impacting us in so many ways. EVs are getting cheaper. More people can afford them.
Yeah.
More people can choose a cleaner way to get around.
That's a good thing.
It is. Less pollution, less reliance on oil and gas.
Yeah.
But there are challenges, too. We need a lot more charging stations. We need smarter electric grids. We have to figure out how to make EVs work within our current systems.
You can't just, swap all the gas stations for charging stations overnight.
Nope. Takes time, planning, money. And then there's the social and economic side of things, too. What about the people who work in the old car industry? How do we make sure this shift to EVs is fair, that no one gets left behind?
Those are some big questions.
They are.
It feels like we're at the beginning of a massive societal shift, and we need to be ready for the challenges.
We need to be informed, be engaged, help shape this change.
So it's not just about the cool cars and the new tech. It's about the big picture, right?
Yeah.
Making sure this happens in the right way.
The tech is awesome, don't get me wrong, but the human element is what gives it meaning. We got to think about the people behind it all, the engineers, the factory workers, the people driving these cars, the whole communities that are changing because of this.
It's easy to focus on the numbers, the market share, all the technical stuff.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's about people. How this tech is changing our world.
It's about the human stories behind the technology.
Yeah, exactly. The passion, the creativity, the struggles, the successes. And I think it's important to keep that in mind as we go through this EV revolution. We need to see the whole picture.
Absolutely.
The technology, the economic side of things, the human stories. So we've talked about the challenges for the traditional car companies, the sustainability aspect, companies like Geely and what they're doing. We talked about how this is affecting people. But like any good story, there's a twist.
Oh.
And in the EV market, there's something happening that could change the whole game.
Oh, okay.
We'll be getting into that in the final part of our deep dive.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our EV deep dive. Remember that game changer I mentioned?
Yeah, you got me curious.
Well, BYD, the company that's already on top, they're starting a price war.
A price war? Really?
Yeah. They're slashing prices, putting pressure on everyone, even Tesla. What's the strategy there?
Well, it's a way to solidify your position.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're number one, and we're going to make it even harder to catch us.
Yeah.
Lowering prices forces the other companies to either follow suit, which could hurt their profits, or risk losing market share. It's disrupted or be disrupted. Classic.
I see how that puts pressure on companies like Volkswagen, Toyota. They're still trying to get their EV game going.
Right.
And now they've got to deal with this.
It's tough. It's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
But this price war, it's not just about market share.
Right.
It's bigger than that. It's going to affect the whole EV revolution. Making EVs cheaper means more people can switch from those gas guzzlers.
So they're speeding up the shift to electric cars.
Exactly. They're knocking down the barriers, making it easier for people to go electric.
Okay, so that's good for the environment, good for transportation.
Yeah.
But aren't there some risks, too? What if companies start cutting corners to save money? Won't that make the cars, like, worse?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
But BYD is already known for making good EVs at good prices.
Right?
They seem to have found that balance. Affordable and reliable.
That's impressive.
It is.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out long term.
Definitely.
But BYD is shaking things up.
They are. It could ripple across the entire EV market.
Totally. And remember our talk about Geely and those other companies?
Yeah.
Well, this price war makes things even more interesting.
Oh, yeah. It'd be fascinating to see how everyone reacts to this.
Yeah. It's a reminder that this industry is changing all the time.
Yeah.
You got to adapt, you got to be innovative, you got to take risks. But for us, the buyers, this is great news.
Right.
More choices, better deals, and a faster move to a more sustainable future.
The real winners in all of this are us, the people, and the planet.
Yeah.
Competition is good. It pushes innovation, lowers prices,
Yeah.
and we all benefit from that.
Exactly.
It does.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of EVs, I hope you've learned some cool stuff about this crazy industry. We've covered a lot: BYD's journey, the challenges for the old school car companies, sustainability, all the twists and turns that make this so fascinating.
It has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
And the main takeaway, I think, is this is just the start.
Yeah.
This EV thing is gaining momentum, and the next few years are going to be huge.
Yeah.
They'll determine what the future of transportation looks like.
And who knows what's coming next? Maybe those flying cars will be everywhere. Well, it's been a blast. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of EVs. We'll catch you next time for another exciting look at innovation and tech.